Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, a sequel to 2018 Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It's the hot thing everyone's talking about this month, and man, I absolutely adore this movie. It is so good. Like, it's a work of art in almost every way, from the animation to the voice acting, story, music, everything. I could talk about this for hours. I saw it twice, and it's easily my favorite movie I've seen so far of this year, and it's probably going to continue being my favorite movie of this year. I don't see anything else topping this. And if you haven't seen it, what are you doing with your life? Go see a Spider-Man. Go see Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse right now. With that being said, I should talk about how it's pretty well known that the animators during the production of this movie were overworked and mistreated, and while I absolutely still love the movie, I feel like no matter how great the quality of the art is, no one should have to suffer while making it. And I really hope that the animators are treated better during the production of Beyond the Spiderverse and don't go through all the same hell that they went through again. And that what Beyond the Spider-Verse is delayed because like there is no way they could like do that whole movie in the span of like 9 months. Just take as much time as you need to make what I'm going to assume is going to be the greatest animated movie of all time. So yeah, just that's important to note. I just had to say that. But I'm not here to talk about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse or Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I will someday, I got plans for that. But for now, I want to look at the very first time the Spider-Verse concept from the comics was first ever adapted into something outside of, well, the comics. And that would be in Ultimate Spider-Man, starring everyone's favorite Spider-Man actor, Drake Bell, who has done absolutely nothing controversial in his life. Nothing. The concept of multiple spider people together technically did exist in Spider-Man media before it was introduced in the Spider-Verse storyline in the comics back in 2014. I believe it was in the 90s Spider-Man series. I think they did a few episodes about that, and there were also a few video games about it, and all those basically help inspire the Spider-Verse storyline back in the comics in 2014. But the first adaptation of the Spider-Verse comics was with Ultimate Spider-Man, a show that I don't really like all that much, honestly. No, I don't like it. I don't think Ultimate Spider-Man is a god-awful show. I haven't even really seen all of it, but I have tried to get into it a few times. Even back when it was originally airing, I would watch an episode here and there, and honestly, from what I've seen, I just don't really like it. Like, I think a lot of the comedy is not really all that funny. I don't really like its inclusion of other Marvel characters outside the Spider-Man mythos. Not that I hate the idea of a Spider-Man show using other non-Spider-Man related characters that are from Marvel. It's just that, I don't know, I just don't like a lot of the inclusions they have in this show. Like, there's an episode where Loki turns Spider-Man and his friends into, like, babies and stuff, and, like, Thor is also a baby, or, like, not babies, but, like, chibi versions, but everyone thinks they're babies. I have no idea what that whole thing was about. I just didn't like that. I don't really like the way Peter Parker or Spider-Man is written from what I've seen. Maybe he gets better later on, but I just don't like the way he's written. I don't really like Drake Bell's performance as Peter Parker or Spider-Man, and I don't really like that Drake Bell is in it at all because, you know, everything that we know now about Drake Bell. Like, I don't care if he was in Drake and Josh. I never seen that. So, yeah, Ultimate Spider-Man, from what I've seen, I don't really like it. I don't even really know if I want to give it a full chance because, like, I just don't really like the idea of having to watch more than I already have. And I know this show has its fans and everything, and that's cool. If you like it, go ahead and like it. I just personally don't think it's like my thing, honestly. I just don't like it. However, there was something from the show that I remember actually liking quite a bit when it was airing. It was when they did their Spider-Verse storyline. It was like a 4-episode arc during season 3, I believe, where Spider-Man traveled into the Spider-Verse and saw different versions of Spider-Man. What? And I thought, wow, that looks really cool. I saw the commercials for it and everything, and I thought, you know what? I'm gonna check that out. And I did. And I even had the episodes recorded and like watched them a few more times because I just thought it was really good. Even though I wasn't super into Marvel and DC back then, at least as much as I am now, back then I thought Spider-Man was cool because who doesn't like Spider-Man? He's Spider-Man. Like, see? He's that. Wait, why is that crooked? It should be better now. But going back to what I was saying, back then, I enjoyed Spider-Man because he's Spider-Man, he's cool. And I also really liked the concept of multiple universes, alternate dimensions, and a character interacting with different versions of said character. And all of this whole Spider-Verse thing they were doing was up my alley. So I checked these episodes out, and I remember really liking them, honestly. But it has been a long time since I've seen these episodes, so I decided to rewatch them for this video in honor of Across the Spider-Verse. I'm going to look back at the very first animated adaptation of the Spider-Verse Spider-Verse storyline from the comics. And I know Ultimate Spider-Man would do another set of episodes that took place in the Spider-Verse in season 4, but I'm not really too familiar with that version. I think I saw 1 or 2 episodes about that, but I'm mainly gonna be talking about the one that they did, the 4-episode arc that they did in the 3rd season of Ultimate Spider-Man. So let's go ahead and get started. So episode 1 starts with Drake Bell, Spider-Man, trying to figure out what Green Goblin is up to, and what Green Goblin is up to is that he plans on going through multiple dimensions to get the DNA of different spider people and collect them so that he can create, like, you know, he can become more powerful and whatnot. And he teams up with Electro to do this. And by team up, I mean he captures him in this like device and uses his energy to travel through other dimensions. So Spider-Man has to stop him. We then see Drake Bell, Spider-Man, going in to follow Green Goblin and Electro, and he goes into the first universe of the first episode we see. Every episode, or at least the first 3 of this 4-episode arc, is set up like this, where Spider-Man, in the first half, goes to one universe, he talks to a Spider-Man there, and, you know, helps, like, whatever conflict they're with, and also, they team up together to fight the Green Goblin. And in the second half, same thing, and it's like that for the first 3 episodes. And with this first one, we first see Spider-Man show up in the 2099 universe, which is done in this like CG animation, which I think for the most part looks pretty good, but the action does kind of look a bit like janky in some places. Some of like the movements just look kind of like not that great, but the visual wise, it looks good, I think. And then we see him interact with Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, and of course there's a little conflict where like 2 characters see for each other for the first time and go like, wait, I don't know who you are, I'm gonna beat you up. So basically, Spider-Man 2099 thinks Drake Bell, Spider-Man, is an imposter, and he tries to fight him. We also learn a bit about how Spider-Man 2099 is kind of going through a thing where he feels as if his job as Spider-Man is kind of amounting to nothing. Like, there's still crime going on in the city, and he feels like he just wants to quit because he's not doing anything of, like, that's actually helping. And I feel like that's a really interesting conflict. Is it explored all that much? Not really. The main issue that I'm going to be talking about with some of these other episodes as well is that, like, there's going to be like an interesting conflict that they have with the Spider-Man of each specific universe, but it won't be really fully explored because they can only spend like half of the episode on it. And they also gotta like fight the Goblin and of course interact with Spider-Man. You gotta have a few like jokes with them, you know, talking with one another and whatnot. And like, I don't know, I just kind of wish that, like, especially with this thing with Spider-Man 2099, feeling that, like, you know, like being Spider-Man is not actually, you know, doing anything to improve anything about the city. It's like really interesting, and I would have loved to see that explored more, but it just kind of like isn't. We just kind of see them fighting, a few jokes, and then eventually they team up to defeat the Goblin. And then once the Goblin leaves and goes into the portal to the next universe, Spider-Man, before he goes in after him, he tells like Spider-Man 2099 this speech that I can't remember every word of, but it's something along the lines is like, hey, as long as you keep fighting, the legend will continue, you know, the legend of Spider-Man. And it's a legitimately good moment. I like it, and I just feel like it could have been more powerful if they just, like, I don't know, maybe if they just like went in more with this idea, this dynamic that they're going with like him trying to help Spider-Man 2099 figure out like, hey, this is what being Spider-Man is about. And it may not seem like it's always like helping, but it really is. And like, you know, I don't know, I just wish that was explored more. But who cares about all that? Let's go on to the next universe. Then we're onward to the next world that he goes to in this episode. That being the world where all like the male characters from the Spider-Man universe are gender bent, so they're female now. Like you got a female version of Nick Fury, J. Jonah Jameson, Norman Osborn, who is called Norma Osborn, I believe, and she's played by Wendy Malick, which is pretty cool, honestly. And of course, you gotta have a female version of Spider-Man, Patricia Parker, aka Spider-Girl. And gonna be honest, I don't really like her. At first, I'll admit, okay? Like, at first, I didn't really like her, and then later on, I kind of grew to, like, well, not love her, but just kind of acknowledge her existence and go, like, okay, I don't mind you being here. Alright, the reason I found her annoying in the beginning is that her whole thing was all, like, what, a boy being Spider-Man? Huh, please. And then just kind of going, like, oh, man, how can you help me? You're a boy, and, like, that kind of thing. And it's, like, do male superheroes not exist in this world? Like, yeah, I know, like, all the male characters from Spider-Man's world are, like, female in this version, but, like, wouldn't that also mean all the female superheroes from Spider-Man's world would be, like, male here? And it's, like, Drake Bell, Spider-Man himself, isn't even sexist, at least not from anything I remember from, like, the episodes that I've seen, and he doesn't, like, I'm pretty sure he doesn't really mind female superheroes, so I'm just, like, wondering, like, you know, what is really going on? Like, why is she acting like this and, like, all that? It's like, I don't know. it was a little bit annoying, but like later on they kind of like not really do that, like they kind of stop that. And so I think she also has a like an internal conflict as well. I think hers was that she was feeling like she wasn't a good spider a hero or something like that. Honestly, I don't really remember it. Like once like I saw that the animation switched to like just the regular Ultimate Spider-Man style, I was just like, oh okay. Like I said, the first world that he went to was in a CGI style. I was like, oh cool, like yeah, you know, right? Like I remember them doing that. Like when I first watched this, like there'd be like different animation styles, and it turns out nope, I was remembering it wrong. Not every world that he goes to has a different animation style. Just a few of them. This one is just the regular Ultimate Spider-Man style, and it's fine. But like, hey, yeah, basically they meet up. Going back to what I was saying, they meet up. They argue a little bit, but they team up together to defeat the Green Goblin, who teams up also with Norma Osborn. Like I said, the Green Goblin of this universe, voiced by Wendy Malick. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, they just basically what I said before. They defeat the Goblin. Her conflict or whatever she was feeling is like all better now. And then Spider-Man leaves, and then yeah, that just all that. Anyway, next episode. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry I didn't. Some of these I might not have too much to say about, but this one I do have a little bit more to say about. In episode 2, the first world that we see him go to is the Spider-Man Noir world. Everything's in black and white, and it is the typical like Spider-Man, Ultimate Spider-Man art style, but at least the architecture in this New York City and like the setting is different. So it has like the old school like 1930s, 40s, you know, the black and white noir style, and like it all I think it looks pretty good. I think it looks all right. And we see Spider-Man interact with Spider-Man Noir, and his conflict is actually kind of interesting. His whole thing is that like he doesn't feel like he could like really be with other people while he's also being Spider-Man. He doesn't want to hurt the people who are close to him, and so he just kind of, you know, just doesn't talk to them, you know, right? So that kind of thing. And yeah, pretty interesting. But just like what I said with Spider-Man 2099, it doesn't really feel like it's fully explored. So but here I think it's like slightly more interesting, because like I do think it's explored a bit more. I think not a lot like I was hoping, but still a bit more. Like we see him actually interact a little bit with Mary Jane, the Mary Jane of this universe, where they're like kind of have like a relationship where they're like, you can tell they've been together, but at the same time, you know, there's some beef between them because of like, you know, probably something we haven't seen. And you know, it's like I think it is interesting, and Drake Bell Spider-Man coming in to help in with that, it is explored a bit, but mostly they gotta stop Green Goblin, who's causing like a bit of chaos in this New York, and they eventually do stop that. And yeah, they stop the Green Goblin, and then they go to the next world. So yeah, I don't know what else to say. Okay, I'm kind of regretting doing this. Spider-Ham world. Yep, next world Drake Bell Spider-Man goes to is the one with Spider-Ham in it, and all the Marvel heroes are also animals. So you got like you got you know, Iron Mouse, and not the VTuber, I mean like Iron Man but as a mouse. You got Captain America Cat. I'm sure that's not their names, at least for Captain America Cat, but hey, they're all animals is what I'm saying. And I like the art style that they go with here. It's a very much more brighter, cartoonier style, and I kind of like the idea that they go here with like in this episode the two universes that they go to are like drastically different, with one of them being like a dark noir world and the other one being a bright colorful cartoon animal world. I like that. That's neat. And we get introduced to Spider-Ham. His whole conflict is that I think he was feeling that like he was like, you know, everyone hates him when he does like the superhero stuff, so he just gives up and quits, something like that. I'm gonna be honest, some of the plot stuff I don't really remember. It's been a few days since I've seen the episodes, and so not all of it is super memorable, gonna be honest. But hey, I think that's what Spider-Ham's conflict is in this. But what helps him get back into that costume is helping like Peter Parker, you know, Drake Bell Spider-Man, fight the Green Goblin who is here, and they fight him off. And then at the end, he feels like hey, I could be Spider-Ham again, especially when like Iron Mouse, Iron Man Mouse, not the VTuber, comes in and says like, hey, do you want to be part of the Avengers again, or whatever I think he said Avengers, or maybe he said like some animal pun of like the Avengers, but as animals. So I don't really remember. Point is, he joins them again, and Drake Bell Spider-Man goes into the portal to find Green Goblin again. And you know, I feel bad that I don't have a lot to say about some of this stuff, but like I genuinely don't, but that's all that happens. This one, like, overall, this episode, I think was pretty good. I liked it more in the first one because I think I like these two worlds. I found them a bit more enjoyable, honestly. I feel like they leaned in at least a slightly more with the, you know, right, with how the characters, how Drake Bell Spider-Man interacts with these specific Spider-Man. Like, I don't know. I think they do. But overall, it was, I'd say, a pretty good episode. But on to episode 3. So this is the last episode where we see him go into different worlds, where in the next one is just like the final battle. But like the first world that we go into is medieval worlds, where instead of New York, it's just called York, you know, because it's not new. But it's like a medieval world. There are like knights and you know, mythical stuff and whatnot. And Spider-Man interacts with Spider Knight, I believe was his name. It's like Spider-Man but as a knight. And I think his conflict was something about fear. Like, I don't know, I just remember him later on at like during like the final battle, he was like saying like something about fear. I don't exactly remember what he said. This one was probably my least favorite of all the worlds that he goes to in these episodes. I don't know, just nothing all that interesting about it. The art style is the typical Ultimate Spider-Man art style, but like the architecture is not really all that interesting compared to that of like the Spider-Man noir world, where it's like, oh hey, you know, it's like a noir world, like, you know, old school detective world. And here it's just like, oh, it's just like well, it's not really that explored that much. It's like this old village. I don't even think we see like a castle or something. I could be wrong, but like, point is, it's just not all that memorable. I do like that the Spider Knight is voiced by Josh Keaton. That's pretty cool. And yeah, they interact and like you know, they fight off like the Green Goblin, but also like Dr. Octopus, I believe, like controlling this robotic Kraken and whatnot. Yeah, that all that happens. I don't got much to say. I'm sorry. It's just not that. It's probably my least favorite of all the worlds that he goes to, honestly. But I do like that this world's Merlin kind of looks like Doctor Strange. I think that's what they're going for, that Doctor Strange is Merlin in this world. So yeah, I don't know. Just on to the next world. And the final world that Spider-Man goes into is the Miles Morales world, which honestly, this is probably my favorite aspect of any of these episodes, because I think in this one, it actually does its storyline pretty well, where like, we don't really get a lot of the generic like, oh hey, you know, you gotta like have this little argument stuff, they fight for good. Like, no, I think there is a little bit of that, but it's like quickly forgotten about, and then we just see them interacting, and we see like this one actually has some depth to it, this part of the story where he interacts with Miles Morales, who is voiced by like Donald Glover, which is really cool, honestly. I genuinely love that, especially when you know like how much Donald Glover and Miles Morales are connected to one another history-wise. Like, he was one of the inspirations for Miles Morales' creation, and seeing him just play him here is really, really cool. I like that, and he does a good job performing him. And we see them interact, and I gotta say, this one part where like Miles Morales takes off his mask to show that he's Spider-Man, and like, you know, who he is, I mean, and then like Drake Bell Spider-Man just goes, "You're Spider-Man? But you're so young." And in my mind, I'm just like, good save, Drake Bell Spider-Man, good save. I have a feeling like we both know what he was actually thinking. I'm sorry. The point is, onto the episode. Okay, we see them interact, and then we see like Miles Morales telling about how in this world Peter Parker died, and now he's taken on the mantle of Spider-Man, and he doesn't feel like he's really worthy of it. Like, he has like all this fear, and like doesn't feel like he can actually be a good Spider-Man. And then like you know, Drake Bell Spider-Man helps him out through that. And here, I think like Drake Bell Spider-Man gives his best performance. Like, I don't know, like some of the line deliveries here and like the speeches that he gives to him, like trying to legit inspire Miles, is like really good. And I legit really like the scene where they go to Peter Parker's grave, like the Peter Parker of this world, and like he just kind of says like, oh hey, this, you know, if only I was there, maybe I could have helped. That he goes like that. It is kind of undermined a little bit by a joke where like where Peter goes like, but yeah, you're like 13 or something. It's like, hey, I'm 14. I can drive to, like, you know, they joke about his age. It kind of undermines someone a little bit, but not too much. But like, it's a legitimately good scene. And speaking of which, who's the thing that they gotta fight here? They gotta fight Green Goblin, obviously, but they also gotta fight the Green Goblin of this universe, which is much bigger than the Green Goblin from Peter's universe, from Drake Bell Spider-Man's universe. And I think it's legitimately funny seeing them side by side. It kind of reminds me of the scene from Shrek Forever After where Shrek encounters the other ogres, and he's just like so much smaller compared to them. And yeah, that's how I make a Shrek reference in the Spider-Man video. Wait, how old was Miles? Miles again? Like, I think they said 14, but it might have been 13, honestly. I can't remember, and I don't really feel like going ahead. Like, this video is already, like, I wanted this out in June, but, like, it's coming out, like, mid-July now or something, so I just gotta get it out. I don't got time to rewatch it. Anyway, they eventually defeat the Green Goblin of the Miles Morales universe, and then at the end, like, when when Drake Bell's Spider-Man is gonna go back into his world, to, you know, to stop the Green Goblin from his universe, he kind of, like, we have, like, one final moment with him and Miles, and it is legitimately good. And overall, I think this is, like, I don't know if I would say this is my favorite episode overall of, like, these 4 episodes, because, like I said, I think the first world that he goes to in this episode, which is the night world, is just not all that interesting, but this half is legitimately really good. I think it's the best of, like, any of these episodes, and, like, I think it is legitimately really good. And so I think, like, overall quality wise, I think the second episode with the Noir Spider-Man and Spider-Ham world is probably, like, the best one when it comes to, like, my enjoyment of it. I mean, like, because it has, like, both storylines I think are pretty good, but I think this one section alone with Miles Morales is the best, like, aspect, like, the best, like, story from these 4 episodes, I think. But yeah, so basically what I'm saying is I like what they do with Miles here, and after this, yeah, this is the peak of the Ultimate Spider-Man Spider-Verse episodes. The rest is downhill. That's a bit mean to say. It's not downhill, it's just more like, I just kind of, like, lost a bit of interest, because, like, I think besides the Miles Morales stuff, I think I was like, the rest of these episodes are just, like, okay. Like, I don't think they're anything spectacular or amazing or other adjectives used to, like, describe Spider-Man, but they're okay, I think. And this final episode is decent. We get, like, all the Spider-Men together. They come to, like, Drake Bell Spider-Man's universe to help him defeat the Green Goblin, and then once they do that, and later on they had to defeat Elektra, who became, like, this giant mecha or something, and they do that, and everyone goes to their universe, and then Peter stays in his universe, obviously, and continues going on more adventures in the rest of season 3, which I have not seen, and season 4, where I believe they do another set of, like, Spider-Verse episodes, like I mentioned before, but I don't have time to watch those right now. Maybe later when the next Spider-Verse movie comes out, whenever that is. But yes, that is the Ultimate Spider-Man Spider-Verse episodes, the first 4 from, like, their, you know, from season 3. And overall, they are just okay. There is some legitimately really good stuff. Like I said, the Miles Morales stuff really impressed me, and I think, like, some of the vocal performances are pretty good. Like I said, Josh Keaton voices Spider-Knight, so that's obviously amazing. And Benjamin Diskin, I believe, played Spider-Ham. I think he did a pretty good job as well. And overall, like, I just think, yeah, episodes were fine. If you notice, like, I did not really compare these episodes to anything that we get later on, specifically, like, the Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse movies. It's because, like, I kind of just wanted to look at these episodes as their own thing, and at the same time, like, come on, those movies are, like, freaking masterpieces. It wouldn't be fair. But when I was actually watching the episodes on my own, in my mind I kept going, like, yeah, this is okay, I guess. But compared to Into the Spider-Verse, though, it's like, I know that's really not fair to do at all, and I am admitting that. Like, I shouldn't compare them at all, because that's even what I did in this video. I just kind of looked at it as its own thing. But, like, you know, once you see Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, it's really hard to see something like this, try to do the Spider-Verse storyline, and you go, like, yeah, it's alright. It's definitely not bad. But, like, overall, I would say I had a good time, I think, yeah, watching these episodes. I definitely didn't have a bad time. Like, sure, there's some stuff in it that I didn't really like because it's connected to the Ultimate Spider-Man show, but I do feel like out of all the episodes that I've seen of the show, which is, like, around maybe over 10 or so, I think these are probably my favorite. They're the best, which is kind of funny to say because they have the least stuff with, like, Ultimate Spider-Man. Like, I forgot to mention this, but in the show, he has, like, these group of friends that are part of, like, a team with him. White Tiger, Nova, Iron Fist, and Luke Cage, where he calls himself Power Man for some reason. And I don't really, like, I don't think they're, like, terrible, but, like, I don't really think they're all that great either, and they're not even in these episodes, so, you know, man, yeah, I don't know, I just think that's interesting. But who knows, maybe they're in those other ones, or maybe not, I don't know, I don't really care. Point is, these episodes, they are just fine, and if you want to watch them, just to see, like, hey, this is how the first adaptation of the Into the Spider-Verse storyline from the comics is in animated form for the first time. If you want to see them, then I say go ahead. You don't really need to watch much of the show to really understand these episodes. Like I said, they don't even have like the main group of friends that he has in these, so it's just, yeah, I don't know what else to say. They're just fine. Anyway, I'm gonna go keep thinking about Across the Spider-Verse and how much of an amazing movie that is, and keep on waiting for Beyond the Spider-Verse, which now, with everything going on with like the strikes and everything, which I support, I should say, it does seem like it's gonna be a while before we get Beyond, but hey, I'm sure the wait will be absolutely worth it. But yeah, Drake Bell Spider-Man sucks.